And I will now give the floor to Amy Cohen, who is Director of the International Relations and Advocacy at Amim, which focuses on developments in Jerusalem. Amy.
Excellencies and distinguished members of the Security Council, I wish to thank Denmark, France, Greece, Latvia, and the United Kingdom for organizing this critical Arria-formula briefing and meeting. I'm likewise grateful for the invitation to brief the Council today on East Jerusalem, which has largely been overshadowed by the aftermath of October 7th, the catastrophic conditions in Gaza, and the broader regional war. I appear before you today as an Israeli who has lived in Jerusalem for much of the past 2 decades and as a representative of Amim. Amim is a Jerusalem-based NGO made up of Israelis and Palestinians working to advance a just political resolution to the conflict while confronting human rights violations that stem from 59 years, or nearly 59 years, of illegal occupation and annexation of East Jerusalem. In the wake of the deadly October 7th attack and the devastating war in Gaza, the Israeli government has unfortunately exploited this period to create irreparable facts on the ground that undermine prospects for a political agreement and entrench a single regime of Jewish supremacy and unequal rights between the Jordan and the Mediterranean. As mentioned by Basil and Max, forced displacement, settlement expansion, state and settler violence across the West Bank and East Jerusalem has reached record levels. Annexation is on full throttle. In East Jerusalem alone, plans for 10 new settlements, which many of you have never heard of, with over 20,000 housing units, were advanced in the span of 2.5 years. This is the highest figure in over 3 decades. Many of these plans are designated for the heart of Palestinian neighborhoods or strategic areas along the city's perimeter designed to disconnect East Jerusalem from the West Bank. And if you'll see on the screen, the red circles mark the areas where these new settlements are advancing. The recent approval and tendering of the E1 settlement project threatened to bisect the West Bank and sever its connection to East Jerusalem, which, as Israeli Minister Smotrich described, and I quote, will bury the idea of a Palestinian state. If you mind just going back to the previous slide that has the 4 circles. If you see, the 4th circle is encircling the E1 area that is just to the east of East Jerusalem. Tenders in this area for all 3,400 housing units are slated to open on July 1st. This is compounded by an unprecedented surge in forced evictions and home demolitions, where entire communities in East Jerusalem are now undergoing large-scale explosions. Nowhere in East Jerusalem is this so severe in the area called Silwan, a Palestinian neighborhood located in the heart of historic East Jerusalem, the Old City Basin, as can be seen in the displayed image. This is one of the most religiously and politically sensitive areas of the region. Excellencies, I address you today with an acute sense of urgency and the need for immediate intervention. What was once a looming threat is now being systematically carried out as we speak. In the Batin al-Hawa neighborhood of Silwan, Palestinian families are being forcibly evicted and their homes transferred to Jewish settlers. In the displayed image, the blue marks the homes already seized by settlers, families that were already evicted, the red marks those facing imminent evictions, and the yellow marks ongoing court proceedings. In the Al-Bustan neighborhood of Silwan, that is just adjacent to Batin al-Hawa, Palestinian homes are being demolished to make way for an Israeli biblical theme park on the ruins of the neighborhood. If not halted, some 2,200 Palestinians stand to be displaced in the immediate vicinity of Al-Aqsa Temple Mount, amounting to one of the largest waves of explosions in East Jerusalem since 1967. Next slide, please. The displayed image is an aerial view of Silwan with two communities undergoing mass displacement marked in yellow and red. And as you can see, it is adjacent to Al-Aqsa Temple Mount and the Old City in one of the most politically and religiously sensitive areas of Jerusalem and the region. An estimated 450 Palestinians from these two communities have already been displaced in the past 2 years alone, half just since the start of 2026, with hundreds more under imminent threat of the same outcome. Among them, as we speak, 7 families are slated for forced eviction in less than 2 weeks to be supplanted with Jewish settlers. Behind these numbers are people that have courageously demanded the right to remain in their homes through nonviolent means, utilizing the legal system that has been imposed upon them to try and demand their rights. And yet, in return, they are met with violence and injustice. In the words of one community leader in Silwan, and I quote, "I teach the young not to hate, but when a child's house is destroyed, what can I say to him? How can I persuade them that we must live with the other side in peace? I'll continue speaking about coexistence and nonviolently demanding our rights, but it will be more difficult from now on." These processes of displacement and dispossession are carried out in East Jerusalem, not by violent settlers, like we heard from Basel, but directly by the state and Israeli authorities, underpinned by a discriminatory domestic legal system that deprives Palestinians of basic rights and any genuine path to justice. Excellencies, as confirmed by the 2024 ICJ advisory opinion on the Israeli occupation, such actions are a grave violation of international law and tantamount to forcible transfer. These measures not only convene relevant UN security resolutions like 478, 2334, and most recently 2803, but also undermine the New York Declaration for a two-state solution that was recently endorsed by the UN General Assembly. For these instruments to carry meaning, they must be upheld and implemented, as we heard both by Max and by Basel. It requires more than statements of concern or condemnation. It must be translated into tangible action. And in the immediate term, it means employing all measures possible to compel the Israeli government to, 1, cease all acts of forced displacement, including home demolitions, forced evictions, land confiscation in Jerusalem, throughout the West Bank, and most urgently in Silwan. 2, end all settlement expansion and moves towards annexation. 3, afford Palestinians with rights to housing and shelter through equitable urban planning and housing policies, which are being denied to them. And 4, to uphold freedom of movement, speech, and cultural rights. And to conclude, Excellencies, it must be underscored that the absence of accountability and consequences for repeated Israeli violations for international law and for a deliberate obstruction of a Palestinian state has fostered a state of impunity and ultimately brought us to this dark moment, depriving both Israelis, like myself, and Palestinians, like my colleagues, alike of life, security, dignity, and peace. And in order to chart a different path, a meaningful political process with Jerusalem at its center must be advanced. Amim's new political vision offers a different future, one of an open city as the shared capital of two states, grounded in the principles of self-determination, equality, justice, interdependence, and inclusive security. This is the political horizon that we need, not as a distant aspiration, but as an urgent imperative. Thank you.
I thank Amy Cohen for her powerful briefing.